Excellent. Bonjour tout le monde, and hello to all our attendees here today. Wow, take a look at everyone joining us from across the world. It is great to be back speaking with everyone again. We'd like to have set our space before we launch into the content for today. In order to connect us all, we have two warm-up questions that we wanted to put in the chat box to bring us closer together. So please, in a moment, as we pop into the chat, fill out these two questions. Number one, please let us know where you're calling in from. And number two, knowing the importance of bringing humanity together during these challenging times, what is something this year that has brought you joy? Let us get some positive connections flowing, everyone, please. Excellent. Thank you so much, Danny. Appreciate it. Great to have you here. All right, Karen, great to see you here as well. Thank you. And great share, Angelica. That's really nice. Excellent. So let's dive in. First of all, thank you for joining our CAAM quarterly open house Momentum, bringing together our CAAM members, the greater CAAM ecosystem, and the growing advanced air mobility industry globally. To all our returning faces, thank you for your continued efforts and your work alongside CAAM in creating the future of aviation for Canada. For those of you on initial introductions, my name is J.R. Hammond, and I'm grateful to serve as the Executive Director for CAAM, our federal, not-for-profit Canadian Advanced Air Mobility Consortium. Alongside me, we are privileged to have our lead operating officer, Chris Howe, and our CAAM team members of Robin, Gio, Nishant, Darian, and David supporting us behind the scenes. 2022 for CAAM is the year of momentum. The seeds planted and traction created in our pan-Canadian engagement for the future of aviation is driving our operational mandate for this year. Today's focus is going to share some of the momentum ongoing with CAAM's ecosystem and really propel the tangibility of advanced air mobility work throughout 2022. Thank you once again for joining us here today. Now, our focus for today's agenda is to bring the opportunity in setting the path forward for our annual strategy of momentum. We will begin the discussion by highlighting what success for momentum looks like for CAAM throughout 2022. Then we'll transition our conversation to the cutting edge work ongoing at United Bioelectronics by inviting Mikaël Cardinal to the stage for our fireside chat. Lastly, we'll conclude our event with our calls to action and next steps for the ecosystem as we propel onwards in our work at CAAM. For today's audience engagement, we invite our attendees to submit any questions using the Q&A function in our Zoom webinar located at the bottom of your screen, which will allow our CAAM team members to respond and follow up offline for any detailed questions or insight. And as we set our base work for today's conversation, we have to acknowledge that we are hosting this digital event on the unceded and traditional ancestral territories of the countless First Nations across Canada. Collectively, we as settlers recognize our duty and responsibility for decolonization, reconciliation, and the equitable inclusive use of our future air resources. We'd like to share and promote this artwork by Coon Creations, who led the Bead Your Province map with designs by Indigenous artists from across Turtle Island. We invite you to explore this artwork and Indigenous land acknowledgement through the link our CAAM team members will share in the chat box to Coon Creations and the Indigenous artists a part of their work. Now, as we lean into the growth and importance for CAAM for the future of aviation, we have to acknowledge that this has been strengthened thanks to our co-founding partnership with the National Research Council of Canada. The NRC, as Canada's largest federal research and development organization, and CAAM together bring the full weight of the federal government and the nimbleness of a not-for-profit organization executing together on projects for the future of aviation. In strengthening CAAM's pillar of sustainability, we have aligned our work to enact the United Nations ICAO goal of reaching net zero aviation operating emissions by 2050 in Canada. This alignment at CAAM and our vision has our purpose in only becoming more clear and defined with this ICAO Net Zero 2050 goal, leaning into the pillar of sustainability. This engagement continues to support our ongoing work in catalyzing global stakeholders behind our core vision and mission. At CAAM, we exist to create a unified national strategy for zero-emission advanced air mobility in Canada. Now, we've reached an inflection point in Canada where we've created an ecosystem with tangible momentum. In 2021, CAAM set out our annual strategy of liftoff, and now in 2022, we set our targets on momentum. To highlight only a few of the recent headlines with our advanced air mobility champions here in Canada, we have to look no further than the recently announced $12 million partnership between Blade Air Mobility and Helijet as a commitment of two organizations en route to developing a zero-emission AAM future together. Further, on the Canadian side, we see the global stage partnerships with that of Canada's CAE and world-leading eVTOL manufacturer, Joby Aviation, leading into both the pilot training and flight simulation of their future zero-emission aircraft. The expansion of the advanced air mobility momentum into value chains beyond just operations has shown the world that even if advanced air mobility doesn't succeed at the pace we imagine, the traction catalyzed in Canada to date will spill over into the other sectors of transportation, energy generation, and critically, automotive as well. This is the ecosystem momentum already underway, and this is happening today. We know, though, that this journey in zero-emission aviation is not done in silo. We continue to catalyze our three levels of government, industry, academia, and capital from across the globe to join the conversation and build the future of aviation here in Canada. The power and force of our momentum for the future of flight shows that we are stronger in alignment together. Now, as our advanced air mobility ecosystem continues to evolve for the future of aviation, we really lean into the questions and the understanding of how we can move people, goods, and services with these new aircraft and energy systems. We have seen the aviation ecosystem evolve in scope over the past year. Our focus at CAAM needs to remain on the cutting edge of the industry through ensuring that we integrate and align our organization with the progress occurring across the world. While the advanced air mobility market supports both piloted and remotely piloted operations, we want to bring the attention to our main focus and value driver for CAAM, which is ensuring the progress of the industry to our sustainability mandate of zero emission operations. CAAM's scope of operations continues to play an important role in partnering with the existing operations in the drone and RPAS sector. However, ensuring that these lessons are transitioned and insight applied to the vertical takeoff and landing space, the regional fixed wing and retrofit market, and lastly, inviting our commercial aviation operators from across the country to be at the table with us from the early onset of this new industry development. This expanded scope of CAAM continues to bring a more robust engagement for our ecosystem and reduces the silos of learning for policy, regulators, government, and industry, and ensuring a seamless integration between learnings, opportunities, and critically, market entry points. Now, in order to give the tangibility behind some of the current aircraft being flown, we wanted to highlight Joby Aviation's electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft seen here. This S4 is a 5-seater, fully electric aircraft capable of taking off and landing vertically like a helicopter, yet being able to transition to horizontal flight for efficiency in distance travel. These new aircraft and technologies unlock how we can better serve our dense urban areas with zero-emission aviation while weaving together aviation transportation into the modes of our community fabric. And expanding on the fixed wing side, there's a growing importance of the regional air mobility market that fixed wing conventionally can serve. We are actively engaged with these projects at CAAM. One of them, as seen here, is the retrofitting of existing aircraft, as seen through Harbour Air's eBeaver program in Vancouver, Canada, and further work in the hydrogen fuel cell sector with de Havilland Canada and their partnership with ZeroAvia. And lastly, as we look to the larger commercial aviation industry, CAAM is taking a leading role with our commercial airlines in Canada to incorporate the work ongoing worldwide, Airbus's Zero-E hydrogen aircraft program as an example, and ensure integration into the commitment of a 2050 net zero operating future for aviation. Our focus at CAAM is centered around revenue generating use cases. This remains consistent. This mentality has allowed us to focus our structure and pathway to commercial operations in Canada, understanding the complexities of autonomy and greenfield infrastructure builds that come with this new industry. We can see commercial revenue generating operations in Canada today in our drone and RPAS sector with leaders like Indro Robotics and Drone Delivery Canada. We also see a near-term opportunity for the use of existing airport infrastructure and proven demand routes for the regional fixed-wing market in both retrofitting of certified aircraft and later the introduction of newly designed certified aircraft. For operations in the vertical takeoff and landing space, as well as commercial aviation, we see a longer time frame to maturity given the challenging hurdles we still are progressing in autonomy, certification, as well as infrastructure. Needless to say, though, as a leader for CAAM continuing to champion the industry's voice for AAM in Canada, our liftoff projects from 2021 helped catalyze new revenue-generating use cases across the country. We've crossed the threshold where advanced air mobility projects nationwide are being launched and moving forward, leveraging CAAM for access to federal and provincial grant funding as our not-for-profit organization is structured. Specifically, I wanted to bring the awareness to the incredible work ongoing in the provinces of Manitoba and Quebec, who continue to actively build advanced air mobility-based projects within their provinces, leveraging the existing aerospace clusters that exist there. The national bar for unity and advanced air mobility continues to grow, and we're seeing these pockets of innovation tie together as our national framework develops. To be more specific on one of the announcements we wanted to share today with the group is we are having our public release of our findings for our most recent project on the advanced air mobility manufacturing side. Our project is going to have a public release for the best practices for AAM manufacturing. And this is coming out of a partnership that we've established with the Composites Knowledge Network, Canada's leader on composites manufacturing. CAAM and CKN are releasing our findings of through an executive summary on the AAM manufacturing best practices in Canada. Critically, the team was tasked with answering the following questions within this report. Can aerospace products be manufactured at near automotive rates and cost? And secondly, how are leaders in advanced air mobility approaching these manufacturing challenges? Our event in the release of the executive summary will be happening next week, and we invite you to sign up for our event utilizing the link our CAAM team will be providing in the chat box below. This continues to be an opportunity to lean into some of our CAAM engagements, and we wanted to make sure it's available to our group attendees here today as well. Now, to continue the conversation, I would like to invite Mikaël Cardinal, the Vice President of Program Management for Unither Bioelectronics, the wholly owned Canadian subsidiary of United Therapeutics, to join us on stage for a fireside chat. Mikaël, welcome to the stage.
Hi, Jared. Thanks for having me today.
Fantastic. So let's give our audience a little bit of an overview of your work, Mikaël, on what's been progressing so far in Canada.
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, for those who may not know well, United Therapeutics and Unither Bioelectronics, So Unither Bioelectronique, as JR pointed out, is a wholly owned subsidiary of United Therapeutics, headquartered in Maryland, US. We are a publicly traded public benefit corporation, primarily focusing on the treatment of rare disease such as pulmonary hypertension, arterial hypertension. And we also have a very robust R&D pipeline for organ manufacturing. So we have decided to invest and develop advanced air mobility concept for the future need of the company to deliver basically manufactured organs all across North America. So lately, within the context of a proof of concept demonstration here in Canada, more precisely in Toronto, we basically delivered our first clinical lungs between two hospitals downtown Toronto. So that was one of the latest success of what my Canadian group has been leading. Otherwise, we are invested in a number of larger eVTOL aircraft development, such as the one that we're developing with Beta Technologies, EHang, and Tier 1 Engineering, to name a few. So those are for us a future prospect to deliver organs on much more significant distances, interstate mission, regional distribution, etc. So I think that from a biotechnology company perspective, advanced air mobility is definitely one of the key enabler to deserve more efficiently our upcoming organ distribution network. And I believe also that our future success in the certification and scaling of commercial operation will reside in a diverse, technology portfolio. Or in other words, multiple shots on same goal.
That's exactly it. So now, as we lean into that language of tangibility and operations, we wanted to make sure that we showcase the incredible video coming out of the lung delivery in downtown Toronto. So let's run the clip.
So the major limitation in organ transplantation is that there's not enough organs for the patients. Right now, it's logistically very challenging to move organs from all across the country. And so if we can move them around by drone, it's going to simplify things, but it's also going to improve the quality of the organs. This is not something that one group of people can do. By partnering with these different organizations, it really increases our chance for success.
Key challenges was really learning about the regulatory framework, what's going to be needed from a legal perspective to enable those kind of technology to perform the same kind of mission at scale. There's so many things that are happening downtown Toronto on the airspace side, on the ground. It's not a simple thing, and we want to do it, in the safest way possible, because we are flying a life. So the 12 hours that preceded the actual lung transplant were super exciting for the entire drone team. Checking rigorously, all the flight parameters, NAV Canada, authorization filing, coordination with emergency medical services helicopters that are operating here downtown Toronto.
We've designed a box to protect the lung, to maintain its temperature, to shield it from the elements and vibration, so that the lung itself medically is not going to really experience anything different.
We then proceeded with that drone flight with the organ on board and was rolled into the OR where it was transplanted. That first step for me is really like a major stepping stone, both from an aviation perspective and also from a healthcare perspective.
It can't all happen in a petri dish. It can't all happen in the lab. So you really have to make it real. You have to make it accessible to patients.
It's really going to be a game changer, and it's just the beginning, really, of an exciting journey ahead of us.
Flying a lung for the first time by drone is really history in the making, and that is the success, that it's possible.
Our other aviation strategies at United Therapeutics are to extend the range of drone aircraft. We are now building drones that can fly 100 miles and then 200 miles. Ultimately, we plan to have drone aircraft deliver lungs, hearts, and kidneys throughout all of North America.
I hope really that in 6 months, 1 year down the line, I'm going to be able to meet the patient and find him in good health and enjoy life.
So, Michael, this is it. This is the tangibility that is occurring in Canada today. Talk to us, knowing the importance of some of those critical partnerships. What does it mean to have a partnership with University Health Network and some of the other major participants on this specific use case?
Yeah, I think it was a very, very necessary exercise in terms of, dealing with organ procurement organization, the medical team, the surgical team as well, just to better understand how they currently operate and how could we interface in the near future, hopefully, with more and more, AAM solution for the delivery of those life-saving organs. So yeah, I think a lot of learnings were made on both sides. The medical team and the surgical team learning about the capability and limitation also of drone technology, what needs to be further developed to increase the operability of the system. From an operational perspective, also identified very precise need on the technology side of things, but also on the regulatory framework that needs to be developed to further expand, enable, and scale the use of those vehicles in more and more complex environments, such as downtown Toronto.
No, and that's it. And let's just loop back on those specific points, pushing the boundaries on what is feasible, of course, on the regulatory side, understanding that there's massive asks being put in for use cases like this that have the social benefit, a tangible economic value, and critically for the life-saving capacity of conventional ground transportation that just does not supply the need and demand required for use cases like this. And then on top of that, understanding from the operational piece, the drone and AAM world is not going to solve out this easy one use case for everything. It has to be very specific integration. And that's what it has been from the partners that you've brought on there, Michael.
Yeah, of course. And maybe if I backtrack a little bit, it's very important for UT and what's upcoming in terms of expansion in biotechnology. How to make more and more organs available for transplant. UT has set its course to create an unlimited supply of transplantable organs within the next 10, 15 years down the line. So we know that, engaging those key stakeholders and building the ecosystem and creating synergy and momentum with the key stakeholders in the AAM sector is going to be a key to reach, enough maturity to scale in a safe manner those kind of technology. So, I think on a side note as well, the Canadian ecosystem is very interesting for Unither Bioelectronique, being a Canadian subsidiary of UT, of course. We are definitely engaging more and more, and we are excited to see the momentum that is being created to basically reach hopefully a consensus within the industry and the regulatory bodies to have or unlock, in the near future, more routine operations, specifically to deserve more waiting patients that are in need of time-critical organs.
And that specific point, the time-critical aspect. Now, this leans into perfectly on the declaration that UT has had on being that public benefit corporation, which we know that those social use cases are going to be critical for not only the entrance point into commercial operations in the drone and AAM world, but also how we expand and gain public engagement from day one. What do you see has been unlocked in Canada because of the result of the success of this initial lung transportation project?
Yeah, I think that first step, what it could mean for the future of AAM in Canada is definitely a use case with a world-leading medical organization like UHN is for more of this, right? So when you're trying to balance the risk of a new technology in the market versus the benefit for the public, I think it's fair to say, and everyone I believe would agree with that, all developers and operators of RPAS or advanced air mobility concept out there would agree that the medical sector is definitely the penetrating market. So United Therapeutics as a biotech company is very committed to expanding, again, the supply of transplantable organs and being a public benefit corporation. So we became a PBC in mid 2021. So this is not only intended to produce public benefit, but also to promote eco-friendly solution throughout its business operation in a responsible and sustainable manner. So having that said, the philosophy and the mindset of the company right now is really to push that sustainability and also the public benefit further to improve the quality of the organ that are being delivered to waiting patients. And we have big plans for all North America. So what UT use case unlocks for Canada more specifically, I would say, is one of the key biotech company backed by a very well positioned US entity that has a clear perspective on how and how those technology will better deserve more patient more efficiently as more and more transplantable organs are becoming available in the next decade, right? So obviously, needless to say that the potential for exponential increase in the volume of transplantable organ, especially in a very populated area like the Toronto area or on the West Coast as well, Vancouver, etc. So that potentially exponential increase creates a critical need for more efficient delivery network, more efficient, clean, zero emission AAM solution that will ensure to preserve natural resources with eco-friendly solution. So with the organ delivery use case, in summary, I believe UT unlocks a great potential to further enable and scale AAM solution while making sure to, again, maintain the right balance between risk and public benefits. And what we did with the University Health Network downtown Toronto is just a stepping stone, and a call out, to have more of these with, more people involved and perhaps reach a certain point, a consensus on how to scale that and, how to propose regulatory bodies some framework or adapted consensus standards that I believe will be key to scale this operation.
Yeah, and that efficiency point where a drone and future AAM solution, I think, is where we'll become most interested, because just give us an overview from a high level. What are the inefficiencies that are occurring today in the requirement of moving organs to where they are needed for patients' use? What are the complexities that are being solved out right now?
Yeah, so I think there's a short-term answer and a longer-term answer. The short-term answer is really that last mile delivery scenario, right? I think there's a lot of interest from the medical community right now to have more efficient solution that involve that last mile delivery solution. So how to basically frame a concept of operation that could perhaps deserve transplant centers from a nearby airport, right? So typically organs are flown on aircraft, Learjets, for example, with big medical team. The payload is probably 4 or 5 kilograms. Big aircraft, of course, we need range at some point, but for the last mile delivery, when that Learjet aircraft is landing, for example, in Pearson, and then you're trying to get that organ downtown Toronto at the Toronto General Hospital, for example, for transplant, the last mile delivery from the medical community perspective is somehow can be somehow challenging in terms of transferring the time critical payload from the aircraft to a ground ambulance. So if you could perhaps unlock, specific routes from those controlled airport to nearby transplant centers on the last mile delivery, on the short term, that's of high interest from a medical perspective. It is believed that could improve significantly the quality of the organs. And on the longer term, as I said earlier, there's that scaling in volume and the availability of transplantable organs, either xeno organs, such as the one that was transplanted lately into a man in Maryland for the first time in medical history, or the xeno kidney study we are currently performing with some of our group. So there's definitely going to be a very significant increase. So when you think about that at scale, there's probably not enough, I would say, infrastructures in place, and also pilot to deliver that volume of organs. So I think this is where, I think this is where autonomy, as you mentioned earlier, autonomy on the long run will play definitely a critical role in order to deserve that volume of delivery. And we know there's a lack of pilots, so we envision that AAM will definitely be a key component in scaling. Having, for example, one operator for 10 mission, and gradually moving from pilot in the loop operation, pilot over the loop operation, and afterward, hopefully one day pilot out of the loop operation, when autonomy and certification of autonomy will break through on the regulatory side of things. And on the technology side of things, I think that there's still work to be done as well to meet the required reliability level when you think about scaling the operation to that extent.
Of course, and looking forward, we those challenges are going to exist around the world. But I just want to re-emphasize the point you made, Michael, that this opportunity in the logistical challenges is not segregated just to the Toronto market, just to our major urban centers here in Canada. This is a continual narrative across the world where opportunities can be embraced. And so I just wanted to refocus on that for our airports listening in, for a lot of our infrastructure partners, and critically, our emergency health response individuals. These are some of the opportunities that are being showcased by Michael and his team as an opportunity to lean into where progress is occurring today. How can this expand beyond solely just this one use case and have those learnings transition to other valuable use cases? And just to bring that awareness back, you talk about, Michael, the advancements coming in the biotech world from the kidney side, the different xeno organ transplants. This is starting to intersect very positively with the logistics that are required in moving all of this space into the advanced air mobility world. Never have we seen a time where developments across sectors and across industry, be it the biotech space, energy generation, automotive, those developments are now playing into our advanced air mobility world and vice versa. So I just wanted to raise the awareness for our attendees here today. When we talk about the transportation factor and how aerial solutions can play a role, this is a great example of not only playing that public benefit aspect, but also some tangible revenue generating operations from day one.
Yeah, absolutely, JR. And I think there's also an interesting aspect of scaling the manufactured organs scenario, because I believe that in the next decade we will transition from the current donor organ. We could see that as non-scheduled flight, right? As opposed to the future state where manufactured organ could be made available on demand, hopefully one day, and therefore result in scheduled flight operation on specific, predefined corridor. I think that, scaling the network will become easier, if you will, in that sense, in terms of how you plan the operation and when you can deliver, etc. So from a very practical operation, I think it's interesting to see that we could perhaps envision a wider distribution network on the last mile delivery first, but also further along with regional distribution hub with larger aircraft, more achievable range, but all within the context of scheduled flight operation. And that's very exciting. That's very exciting because I think that's definitely a way to penetrate the market with larger aircraft, larger eVTOL, on very specific, that could operate on very specific parameters, and therefore inform and basically increase the awareness of the public in general about the safety aspect and how the technology can benefit for the greater good. So it's a very interesting future ahead of us.
So let's get specific on looking into the future then, Michael. What are you and your team watching closely as the advanced air mobility industry develops?
Yeah, great question. I think I have an engineering background, so needless to say that we are watching closely the new battery technology out there, such as those that are using solid-state electrolyte, which will likely provide not only higher level of safety, but also better performance in terms of energy density and achievable range. So we're also watching closely other alternative source of energy, such as hydrogen. And we are looking at that from a sustainability and net zero environmental impact perspective for the full cycle, of the product or the AAM solution we're looking at, and of course throughout the entire delivery network operation that we are envisioning right now. That's number one. Number two, I think we are watching closely the advances in autonomy in general, AAM autonomy, because as I said earlier, autonomy will be key to deserve a wider network and scale that network with a larger volume of transplantable organ delivery mission. So it will become, I believe, critical to have AAM solution that reduces the burden related to finding enough pilot, well-trained pilot for those technology. So we envision basically an end goal of a pilot over the loop and eventually pilot out of the loop AAM operation as the regulatory framework evolves toward that direction. And lastly, number three, I think we are obviously watching closely the development of consensus standards in the field of electric propulsion, autonomy, and beyond visual line of sight operation, and how this likely is to be accepted and authority recognized as the basis of means of compliance for AAM. ASTM is developing some of those, SAE, just to name a few. So I would say that are the three key aspects we are currently monitoring, and of course we are involved in some of those discussions since we are both developing and participating actively in the early stage proof of concept demonstration.
That's it. So to bring those three once again to the top of everyone's mind here, looking at the battery capacity, ensuring we have that energy profile to serve the mission and use cases that are being developed. That autonomy side, knowing that that'll be a massive inflection point of our operating profiles, and critically on that consensus-based standards, knowing that we cannot operate this in silo, both in our Canadian jurisdiction, but integrating and aligning on our global side.
Absolutely.
That's where I kind of wanted to build on this last point here, Michael. We at CAAM are really focusing on building that ecosystem to be a national-based voice, that we can have that consensus, at least within Canada, to better tie in on the global side. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing we need more of in Canada for our ecosystem to continue to thrive in more opportunities and use cases like the one you've done in downtown Toronto?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it's fair to say that again, everyone would like to see greater momentum at the national level for the development of a framework standard around autonomous, or I would say semi-autonomous operation. Fully autonomous operation, I don't think it's next year. So we know it's coming, but it might be a longer run. So let's call it semi-autonomous operation, where there will be more authority recognized performance-based requirement to help the industry further develop autonomy, or viable autonomy, or certifiable autonomy. But let's bring this back maybe on the shorter term basis. I think that in order to enable a higher volume of RPAS, remotely piloted aircraft system and AAM operations, such as the proof of concept demonstration flight we did in Toronto, I believe there's a need to work together to unlock, those predefined low altitude corridors for those last mile delivery application, especially for the medical sector. So I see a need to define requirements and operational rules for collaborative separation methodology on the technical side and operational side of things. I'm thinking about, some level of automation for flight and deconfliction in controlled airspace. We know that there's a nav drone app that is a very good step forward for operation of RPAS in the Canadian airspace. But bottom line, I think there's still, of course, room to improve, as always, and that surely means a acceleration of the integration process of RTM and the existing ATM system, both from a technical and regulatory perspective. So I think that is one of the key topics we should collaboratively work together for better integration. How you manage, the integration of both RTM and ATM, conventional ATM system. So drone and manned aircraft could fly in a very safe environment with a very precisely defined requirement and operational requirement.
Yeah, and understanding that there's going to be that transition piece where we have the new technology of the remotely piloted aircraft operating in the same airspace as our conventional aircraft, both piloted as well.
Right.
So critical piece. Now, as we wrap up on some of the more corporate talk, I wanted to dive into the personal questions. We have our regulators, our airports, our policymakers here in attendance today, Michael. What is an ask that you would put out to them listening in on what we have for next steps here in Canada for advancing exactly as you just spoke about that RTM transition phase as well?
Yeah, I mean, just let's work together and all the other key stakeholders that are compelled and interested in the same kind of mission, just to better define the requirement and unlock routine corridors where we could basically fly more RPAS for the greater public benefit in general, especially on the healthcare sector. I think there's a lot of opportunities right now and use case in the Toronto greater area that could potentially be a very important to unlock on the short term, and that could result on the short term on significant step forward in terms of deserving a wider pool of patients, as well as unlocking improvements on the quality of organs and healthcare in general. So let's just, my key message is just let's work together and let's do it so it becomes routine operation.
That's it, the routine side. And just to conclude with on our last one here, Michael, so what is something that gets you excited about this industry, that makes you jump out of bed each day and move forward on the progress for advanced air mobility?
Yeah, great question. I'd say that, I can speak to it because he has consented to media. So Mr. Alain Hodac, the patient that received our clinical lungs by drone, the first human being to receive lung transplant by drone. So I think I would see thousands of Alain Hodac, all across Canada, the Canadian. So yeah, I think that, to your question, I just want to see more and more patients benefiting from the use of AAM, because we believe it is definitely a key enabler to save more lives in the end. So yeah, that's my 2 cents,
Powerful. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time and just bringing the importance of biotech and advanced air mobility playing together in this space. This is not our only case, and I hope we have many more examples this year to complement the incredible work ongoing at Unither Bioelectronics. But once again, on behalf of the entire CAAM ecosystem and our attendees here today, awesome work on leaning into this initial use case, and we look forward to hearing and tracking the developments going forward.
Thank you very much, Jaron. Thanks for having me today and giving me the opportunity to share the progress with Unither Bioelectronics.
And as posted by our CAAM team members here, you can find the link to all of Michael and his team's work available in the chat box. And we encourage, these are the opportunities that are expanding into the advanced air mobility space, bringing different sectors and different innovation, leveraging what is being developed in the advanced air mobility world and how that can apply across our sectors. So once again, thank you again, Michael, for joining us. And we'll make sure all of that is available in the chat box and our summary email as well. So as we lean into the last pieces for today's session, I wanted to bring forward some next steps for our audience here today on engagement with CAAM. Number one, we wanted to invite the opportunity to connect with us in helping catalyze your scoped and budgeted revenue use cases across Canada. This is our big open door that we're putting towards the ecosystem to help introduce partners from government, industry, and academia into these projects while leveraging our not-for-profit status for fund matching via our access to grants. This momentum is going to be critical for moving forward in 2022. On our second piece, become a member of CAAM's ecosystem. We've developed at CAAM a zero-cost membership program with our focus on the requirements for organizations and stakeholders that are CAAM members to, number one, be leading or participating in an advanced air mobility project within Canada during 2022. And number two, adhering to our diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability policies to build this new model. For transparency in how CAAM operates behind the scenes on our financial operating budget, our working model is derived from returning a percentage of any matched grant funding back to our operations only upon success of getting that grant to move some of these revenue generating use cases forward. And lastly, number three, subscribe to receive CAAM's updates from your preferred digital channels online. We continue to showcase the success of our CAAM members globally, providing industry updates and government relevant information, as well as speaking engagements globally. Let us simplify your updates for advanced air mobility and sustainable aviation in Canada by subscribing to our channels. And as we build upon the immense success from last year in this commitment at CAAM to drive the goal of building diversity, equity, and inclusivity in the base fabric of our advanced air mobility industry, we are proud to announce the continuation of our Uplift series for 2022. More detailed plans will be released in the coming months. However, CAAM will be hosting our following events of Women in Advanced Air Mobility, the LGBTQ2+ series, as well as the Indigenous Peoples in Advanced Air Mobility. Our wait list for each event is now open, and we want to ensure that the link is provided within the chat box for our attendees here today to showcase a commitment to the future of aviation and how we can build this work from the base work upwards. And as we conclude for our conversations here today, we want to thank you for leaning in and creating the future of aviation with us in building momentum towards the unified national vision for zero-emission advanced air mobility together. From our entire CAAM team of Robin, David, Nishant, Chris, Gio, and Darian, we thank you for being a part of the solution and joining us here for today's conversation. In conclusion, for our first CAAM Digital Open House of 2022, we look forward to having the ecosystem continue to grow and more of us joining in the conversation for building the future of flight in Canada. In order to give a couple of digital minutes back to everyone today, we'll conclude early, and from all of us at CAAM, we want to express our thank you for joining in your time here today and wish everyone a great rest of the week. Thank you and take care.